While we're waiting for Mayor Pro Tem, I'll go ahead and give our opening statement regarding our virtual meeting. In compliance with California Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order to protect public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19, the City Council meeting is being conducted via teleconference on the city's website and is also provided on a wide array of streaming media platforms to offer access to the public to the fullest extent possible. WehoTV staff have confirmed that this City Council meeting is currently streaming successfully on Spectrum Channel 10 and online at weho.org/WehoTV. In addition, and as a courtesy, this meeting is also successfully streaming on the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/WehoTV and on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Android TV. WehoTV staff monitor this broadcast on all platforms throughout the meeting and will notify the city clerk and council should broadcast disruptions arise. Please do not interrupt the live meeting by calling or texting the City Council about difficulties viewing the meeting. If you are experiencing viewing difficulties while watching this live stream, please reload the page or visit weho.org/WehoTV to access our official live stream and to view a list of other available streaming options. In addition, you may call in to listen to this meeting by dialing 669-900-6833, meeting ID 991-7851-0143, and then press the pound sign. Please understand that internet speeds, device reliability, third-party platform reliability, and individual or personal technical issues are out of the scope of this broadcast. WehoTV staff has published a guide at weho.org/WehoTV to troubleshoot your connection. And if you're still having difficulties connecting to the meeting, you can also call 323-848-3151. And now we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'll turn to our city clerk for a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Present.
Councilmember Shine.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Here.
Mayor Horvath.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. And now I will turn to our city clerk for a report on our recent closed session agendas.
Yes, hi, good evening. I actually have two closed sessions to report on tonight. The first one is a special closed session meeting that was held on May 8th at 4 p.m. There was no members of the public to speak on public comment at that meeting. The item of business was public employment, the city manager position, and the council took no reported action that evening. The council had another closed session this evening, which began at 5:15 p.m. There was no members of the public to speak on the closed session agenda tonight. There were two items of business on the closed session agenda. One, potential piece of litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9D4. The council took no reportable action on that item. The second item of business on the closed session agenda tonight was an item of public employment for the city manager position. And I am pleased to report tonight that following an internal recruitment process, the City Council has selected Assistant City Manager David Wilson to serve as the city's next city manager when Paul Aravallo retires in July. A formal contract with Mr. Wilson will be placed on the City Council's agenda for June 7th in open session for consideration. That concludes my report, Mayor Horvath, this evening. If you have anything to add.
Thank you, Lauren. While we heard for a while that the end of Paul's term was approaching, no one knew that it would happen at this critical time in the wake of a global health pandemic and economic recession. This time has been hard on everyone, including and especially the people we've relied on to get us through. And while we are all frustrated by how we got here and the impacts we're left to deal with, as well as the challenges in rebuilding ahead, I ask that we all dig a little deeper to show up for each other at this very important time. Careful transition takes time, and rebuilding requires even more intentional thought and action. Change will likely not be felt overnight, but with each passing day, we all have a role to play. Thank you in advance for everything that you will do to help our city move into our next phase of maturity. To that end, hiring a new city manager is something very few people in the city's history have been a part of, and it's been quite a long time since the city has embarked on such a transition. So in a special way, I want to thank Lauren Langer, Mike Jenkins, and Paul Arevalo for guiding us through and helping us to respond to all of Council's requests to ensure a thorough, complete process. I also want to thank my colleagues for an extraordinary commitment of time, effort, and energy to this process. In some ways, I wish the public had been able to see us manage this important decision, as I believe it brought out the best in each of us and elevated our focus, discussion, and vision as a whole council for our city's future. And I'm grateful for what each of you brought to this deliberation. But I am especially excited to welcome David Wilson as our next city manager. As a student and professional athlete, David developed skills that are best cultivated and instilled through team sports. Being someone who could not only perform under pressure, but also someone that his team can rely on is something he learned how to do early in his personal growth and will benefit all of us who have the chance to work with him. Professionally, he began his service to our city as an intern and has made his work in West Hollywood the focus of his career. His demonstrated understanding of City Hall's day-to-day operations, as well as our city's finances, give all of us the confidence in him and in his abilities as we face the transition ahead. He is the right person at the right time, and I am personally committed to doing all I can to help him succeed. I hope everyone at City Hall and throughout our community will also do the same. His success is our city's success, and it's going to take all of us in an orderly fashion, working together for the benefit of our city to get through this time. Thank you very much, David, for stepping up in this difficult time, and we welcome you to this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as the next city manager. I look forward to working with you all and the various communities of West Hollywood, along with our city staff as we all work through the recovery from the COVID pandemic and beyond. Thank you all.
Very exciting. And now we will move to approval of the agenda. So Councilmember Shine, I'll turn to you first.
Thank you. I would like to try to move some things to consent.
Okay, I misspoke, so I just want to check with our city clerk first to see if staff have any changes.
Thank you, Mayor. No, staff does not have any changes.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Councilmember Shine, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to move 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5E to consent.
Okay. To be clear, item 5A is the levy of annual assessment for Santa Monica Boulevard Maintenance District fiscal year 2021-2022. Item 5B is consideration of the annual report of the Sunset Strip Business Improvement District and adoption of a resolution of intention to waive an assessment for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. 5C, consideration of the annual report of the advisory board to the West Hollywood Design District, adoption of a resolution of intention to levy an assessment for fiscal year 2021-2022, and deferral of deadline to pay assessments for fiscal year 2021-2022 to fiscal year 2021-2022. And item 5E, which is the East Side Gateway lighting. Any other changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'm going to try one more.
Okay.
I was going to try and move 4A. I know that was the affordable housing in lieu fee update, but I remember my colleague had some questions before, but I don't know if they got answered. But I'm happy to leave it if we need to talk about it. But I see Lauren shaking her head. Leave it. Yep. Okay, we're going to leave it. Never mind.
Okay, so we
wait. I would like to pull item 2I from the agenda, which is regarding the living wage.
Sure. Okay, so we are going to pull item 2I and add items 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5E to consent. Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to ask if we could get some kind of report from staff during the city manager's report on 2H and 2M, which are on Pride and the music, just to let the public know about it. So I'm happy for it to stay on consent, but if someone could just talk about it, that would be great.
Absolutely. With that, are there any other changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll make,
Okay, there's a
Second.
motion and a second. Madam City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember D'Amico,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson,
Yes.
Councilmember Shine,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister,
Yes.
Mayor Horvath.
Aye.
The motion passes.
So we have an agenda, and next we will turn to my colleagues for any adjournment motions. So we have adjournment motions this evening. Councilmember Shine.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I would like to adjourn as of last night's count for the 200 Palestinians and 10 Israelis that have been killed as a result of the war happening, the majority of which have been civilians and many children and women. As a survivor of war, I can say that with certainty that true peace never ever results from violence. And the tragedy and destruction of war has no winners on any side at any time. I would also like to adjourn in the memory of Ali Reza Monfared. He was a 20-year-old Iranian gay man who was savagely beheaded by his own cousin and brother near Ahvaz in Iran because he was gay. Ali Reza was in the process of seeking asylum and fleeing Iran. Reports detail that Ali Reza had applied for an exemption from Iran's compulsory military service. Iranian law states that men over the age of 18 need to serve in the military before they may leave the country, but homosexuality is classified under psychological disorders, which can lead to exemption from service. Prior to this 2016 amendment, only transgender citizens were allowed to apply for such an exemption either before or after a gender confirmation surgery. This government rule leaves many in our LGBTQ community concerned for their safety. Just to be clear, homosexuality is punishable by death in Iran, and I am glad that his story has gone viral, but I really want to point out that he is just one of many, many of our LGBTQ siblings who have been killed as a result of the Islamic regime's rampant homophobic laws and the homophobic culture that they have perpetuated and created in Iran. Umidvaram ruhesh shad bashe. I hope that his spirit finds peace in the light.
Thank you, Councilmember Shine. Anyone else? I have two adjournments this evening. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of the Honorable Cruz Reynoso, who was the son of migrant workers and labored in the fields as a child. And he went on to become the first Latino state Supreme Court justice in California history. In a legal career that spanned more than half a century, Reynoso helped shape and protect the first statewide, federally funded legal aid program in the country and guided young minority students towards the law. He championed legal rights for the rural poor and became a law professor at UCLA and UC Davis. We extend our condolences to his family. And next, I would also like to adjourn in memory of Patrick O'Connell, who is an AIDS activist and creator of the iconic Red Ribbon, creating awareness about the disease. He was the founding director of Visual AIDS, an advocacy group that supports artists living with the disease. And having lived with HIV for over 40 years, O'Connell spent much of his life campaigning to better educate the public about what it means to live with HIV/AIDS. And next, We will go to presentations. We have 2 presentations this evening. Our first presentation tonight is for National Police Week, and I believe Captain Ed Ramirez from our local Sheriff's Department station is here with us tonight. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed May 15th of every year as Peace Officers Memorial Day through a joint resolution in honor of the federal, state, and local officers who have been killed, disabled, or otherwise injured in the line of duty. The joint resolution also authorized the president to designate the week in which Peace Officers Memorial Day falls as National Police Week. National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. Every day, we ask a great deal of the people working for our law enforcement agencies, ensuring public safety, serving as frontline workers, and responding to incidents involving all forms of violence. This year, even as the COVID-19 pandemic took a physical, mental, and emotional toll, deputies demonstrated courage and dedication. The City of West Hollywood hereby proclaims May 9th through May 15th as National Police Week, recognizing the members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who are serving the West Hollywood community and remembers those who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Turn it over to our captain.
Mayor, thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council, thank you so much for this proclamation. It is my honor to accept this on behalf of the men and women assigned to West Hollywood Station. As the mayor just indicated, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. The Memorial Hallway at West Hollywood Station contains artist renditions of 5 West Hollywood Station deputies who lost their lives in the line of duty. Each year we remember Reserve Deputy Lloyd Constantine, who was killed in June of 1964 after being struck by a drunk driver. Deputy Darden Hollis, who was killed in January 1975 after being struck by gunfire. Sergeant Edward Russell, who was killed in January 1977 during a traffic collision. Deputy Mark Stahl, who was killed in September 1977 after being struck by gunfire. An in-person national event is scheduled for October 13 through 17, 2021 in Washington, D.C. to offer the same respect, honor, remembrance, and community support as National Police Week, while allowing law enforcement officers, survivors, and citizens to gather and pay tribute to those who gave their lives in the line of duty. It is in our nation's capital where we will honor our 5th hero, West Hollywood Detective Amber Least, who in January of 2020 exited her vehicle to assist an elderly couple to safety after the woman fell while crossing the street. After getting them both to safety, Detective Least tragically lost her life after she was struck by a motorist while returning to her car. Police Week is a somber time for many law enforcement officers across our country. However, keeping their memory and recognizing their sacrifice is a wonderful tribute to all they left behind. On behalf of West Hollywood Station personnel, thank you for this honor.
Thank you very much, Captain. Thank you for the service and sacrifice of the members of West Hollywood Station of the Sheriff's Department of Los Angeles County. And next, we have recognition of International Firefighters Day. And I believe Chief Gorbani is here with us from LA County Fire Department. Firefighters dedicate their lives to the protection of life and property. International Firefighters Day is a time where the world's community can recognize and honor the sacrifices that firefighters make to ensure that their communities and environment are as safe as possible. International Firefighters Day is observed on May 4th, which many Europeans also celebrate as the feast day of St. Florian, the patron saint of firefighters. The symbol for International Firefighters Day is red and blue ribbons pinned together with red representing fire and blue representing water to signify the elements firefighters work with every day. May 4th is the day to salute, appreciate, and honor the firefighters in our local community, former and current, especially this year in light of the essential community function firefighters have provided through the COVID-19 pandemic. The City of West Hollywood is served by the Los Angeles County Fire Department, the firefighters of Station 7 and Fire Station 8 have gone above and beyond to assist the West Hollywood community, keep us safe, and provide life-saving services. And the City of West Hollywood hereby proclaims May 4th as International Firefighters Day and thanks the brave men and women serving the West Hollywood community. I'll turn it over to you, Chief Borbani.
Thank you very much for the proclamation. On behalf of all sworn members proudly serving West Hollywood, we thank you for the recognition, especially in light of the 20-year anniversary that's rapidly approaching here in September 11th. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're proud to protect and serve.
Thank you very much. And I know it was just a little over a year ago now when both our sheriff and fire joined together with also representatives from Beverly Hills and the city of Los Angeles to recognize the frontline workers at Cedars-Sinai. That moment will always move me and lives with me to this day, as I know it does with many of us. And we also thank you for the service and sacrifice that you have made during this very difficult time.
Happy to serve. Thank you for that very much.
And now we'll turn to public comment. I will turn it over to our city clerk to administer public comment this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker this evening is Adam Darvish. Adam, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak under public comment.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Horvath, Mayor Pro Tem Meister, council members, and Paul Arvalo, our city manager. I'm Adam Darvish, calling as a resident this evening to share a positive story, an experience that the residents on Larrabee had with our City Hall leadership and employees. The timing of this is interesting. I didn't time this for Paul's retirement, but I wanted to share this and appreciate Paul, our city manager, as he retires, for the work that he's done for many years in West Hollywood. On Larrabee, residents were concerned about an abandoned home on a vacant property that is next to Roya's Paradise, which happens to be a boarding care with older adults. So the concern was after hours, close to midnight, homeless or other people going in and out of the house and unusual activities. So they thought there was safety concerns with fire or other safety hazards. So I helped. I called Kristen Cook, and she forwarded the problem to Danny Rivas and got Bill Mulder involved. I can't tell you how much the residents appreciated that timely communication. Danny stayed on it daily and got a hold of the owner, and they solved the issue within just a few weeks, and problem is gone. But again, it shows teamwork between residents and our city hall, and I was happy to see the end result. Danny, Bill, and Kristen stayed on emails, would respond after hours, and again, just amazing teamwork, and hoping that this will be an example for residents to get involved and not get on blogs and talk, use old experiences or negative perceptions about our city hall. So again, I worked hard on my end to improve that, and just wanted to thank Paul and his team for the teamwork. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Our next speaker is Jordan David. Jordan, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak under public comment.
Hi, this is Jordan David, calling from occupied Tonga land, and I'm a voter in West Hollywood elections. First, I just wanted to say thank you to Seppi Shine, Councilmember Shine, for really showing solidarity with all oppressed peoples. It's really powerful to have your voice on the council, and you've consistently done it, so thank you. Instead of low-income housing, instead of healthcare, instead of food safety or education, billions of our tax dollars are being looted to fund the apartheid colonial project of Israel and its genocidal attack on the people of Palestine. Please use all lobbying tools to support HR 2590 and stop the US funding of war crimes. And in West Hollywood, pass a resolution condemning the actions of Israel and encouraging a boycott, divestment, and sanctioning until they end the attacks on Palestinian families.
Jordan, you're muted.
I think he just dropped off, actually, because he's disappeared from our participant list. So I'll move to the next speaker, and if he comes back on, I'll let him finish his comments. Our next speaker is Serena Oberstein. Serena, please press *6, and you will have 2 minutes to speak under public comment.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Serena Oberstein, Executive Director of Jewish World Watch, an anti-genocide nonprofit based here in Los Angeles. Rooted in our own experiences of persecution, Jewish tradition, and values, Jewish World Watch was founded in 2004 when the silence about the genocide in Darfur was deafening. More than 17 years later, genocide and mass atrocity are still rampant, and we are obligated to ensure that never again isn't just an empty phrase, but a call to action. I want to thank the West Hollywood City Council at the leadership of Mayor Horvath for the resolution passed on March 15th, standing up for human rights and against the systematic genocide of the Uyghur people. The Uyghurs are a Muslim ethnic minority group primarily living in China's northwest Xinjiang region. Since 2017, 2 million Uyghurs have been separated from their families and persecuted at the hands of the People's Republic of China. Uyghurs face torture, sanctioned rape, organ harvesting, culture eradication, and extrajudicial killings. More than 82 multinational corporations are using Uyghur forced labor in their supply chain. Global retailers such as Volkswagen, Hugo Boss, BMW, and IBM source goods from these factories, many of whom used Jewish slave labor during the Holocaust. Unfortunately, the horror stories we've heard about Uyghur people being taken in the night, having their heads shaved, put on trains, interned in concentration camps, and systematically disappeared are all too familiar to the Jewish community. What is happening to the Uyghurs is not the Holocaust, but make no mistake, we are witnessing China erect the same infrastructure that Germany developed leading up to the Berlin Games in 1936. It is only fitting that West Hollywood is the first local municipality to pass such a resolution, many of her residents knowing firsthand what it means to be scapegoated and persecuted by the very laws that are supposed to protect us. Too many of us can point to moments in our modern history which make us experts on the signs of genocide, massacre, and persecution. We must hold the Chinese government accountable, and we cannot be complicit. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you, Serena. Jordan, I see that you are back in the meeting. If you press *6, you can finish your comments.
Thank you. I was just talking about Palestine, and to stay silent about this as lawmakers would truly be an act of violence. West Hollywood is supposed to represent progress. That means standing up for what's right, even when members of your own party are against you. Just because there are Democrats who are war criminals doesn't mean you have to follow. Please take a stand for human rights. Lobby the state. Pass a local resolution and free Palestine.
Thank you, Jordan. Our next speaker is Vadim Plotkin. Vadim, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak under public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Horvath and council members. My message to you regards to West Hollywood problems, mainly for smoking, marijuana, tobacco smoking prohibition. Tobacco and marijuana smoking is very harmful for people of every age, and a lot of us are secondhand smoking here in West Hollywood apartment buildings and multi-family buildings. So please take it under consideration. Maybe tobacco and marijuana smoking should be restricted in this city in order to prevent multiple health disorders to local residents. I mean, for example, my mother and me have to breathe the tobacco and marijuana for many years since our arrival to the United States. Yes, and it may cause, as I mentioned, multiple health issues. So my request is to prohibit or to restrict these practices, these very harmful practices, if only possible to make a law that would restrict or prohibit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vadim. Our next speaker is Ms. Tiger. Ms. Tiger, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak under public comment.
As I mentioned.
Go ahead, Ms. Tiger. And if you could turn off your TV or the device you're listening to the meeting, that would be helpful. Ms. Tiger, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay, you have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi there. I am commenting about item 5D, program to encourage privately owned public space. I have engaged in privately owned public spaces while living in New York, and they're a wonderful thing. I look forward to discussing this more, hearing more about it. There seems to be a lot of pushback regarding residential buildings, and I think that we should just, reverse the optics on the other side of it. Yes, there are many valid points regarding residential buildings, but those who would benefit most don't have the same agency of those who are living in these types of buildings. Therefore, there's a lot of discussion to take place. In terms of commercial multi-use properties, I feel this is the best use of privately owned public spaces. But there is a lot to consider when talking with developers. There is much engagement needed with the community who will benefit most from this. And having experienced these in New York, there were many instances in which developers then changed their minds or wanted so many different incentives and then turned around and didn't move forward, citing various complaints and whatnot. So it's just something that a lot of discussion needs to take place around. It's a great, fabulous program. We just need to really talk about it and talk to the community about it, those who would actually be using the spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiger. Our final speaker this evening is Stephanie Harker. Stephanie, please press *6 and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Stephanie, go ahead and press *6.
Good evening, Stephanie Harker, City of West Hollywood. First of all, congratulations to David Wilson. I and many members of the community look forward to working with you. I'm calling tonight in support of 5E, which you thankfully all put on consent. We're just thrilled. Let there be light on the east side. Let there be beautiful colored lights on the east side. When you take a walk down this end of town, you can only think that it could probably be like Main Street in Santa Monica or like Larchmont in LA. So we're really looking forward to it. I think it'll improve kind of the whole morale of this end of the city as well. Thank you again for that. And also 5D on the community spaces and private property. It's a long time coming, and I hope that this can be in conjunction with community gardens. It really would be a wonderful thing not to see empty lots sitting around or see some space set aside in our new very large commercial buildings. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Oh, one more thing. I recently watched Greta Thunberg, A Year to Change the world's response to the COVID-19 epidemic and what we learned about climate crisis, for instance. And I think you should all try and watch it if you can. It's quite enlightening. When the world shut down, the industries and jobs and cars, it only took us back. You remember how clear the skies were and things. It only took us back to 2016 in where we are with climate crisis. So it's certainly something to think about, and it's on PBS. So you can probably find it on Netflix, etc. Excellent watch, and reminds us what we all need to do, literally, to save the earth. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mayor, that was our final speaker for public comment.
Thank you very much. And I did get a message that our Zoom speaking volume it's sometimes hard for people to hear, those who are speaking both from the public and council and staff. So just, if you can, please make sure that you use your volume, you speak clearly and loudly when making comments, and captions are available on WehoTV for all who are watching. Who would like to begin councilmember comments? Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you so much. I got this little thingamabobber so that like I could be like cool like Councilmember D'Amico and have these headphone things in because I couldn't hear myself on the thing. So I took his advice and got a pair myself. So hopefully you can hear me. I just want to start off with the meetings I've attended. I attended the SCAG 2021 annual meeting of the General Assembly, the 3rd District Consolidated Oversight Board. I really enjoyed the CCA Analyzing Law Enforcement webinar, as well as I've been attending League of California Cities meetings and lobby visits and general sessions. And then I also attended the last Housing Elements Task Force meeting. In regards to comments, I want to congratulate Rob Bergstein on volunteering 4,200 hours of his time to our WeHo Sheriff Station front desk. Rob would always be that first person that would go in and you'd see him, and among many other people that would be there that have volunteer time. And although he is moving to Palm Springs, he has just given so much to this community. So thank you so much, Rob, for that. I also want to congratulate Marie Cartier in receiving Long Beach City College's Creative Writing Program's Drury Award. And it's just so exciting to see some of these things come back and the arts really thrive. Speaking of the arts, I also want to remind everyone that each year the City of West Hollywood celebrates the artistic contributions of the LGBTQ community with its One City, One Pride LGBTQ Arts Festival. It's 40 days, and it starts on Harvey Milk Day on Saturday, May 22nd, through Wednesday, June 30th, which marks the end of Pride Month. And this year's theme is For the Record, which explores LGBTQ stories of the past that have often been hidden or undocumented. And there are 19 programs. I have them all on my calendar. Can't wait. And please visit weho.org/pride. Additionally, just something for Paul to maybe address. One thing I noticed this past weekend walking from San Vicente and Santa Monica down to Melrose and San Vicente is the little non-sidewalk sidewalk that is there that people walk their dogs in and out from when they're going up to the dog park. It is very dirty. There is a lot of dog excrement there that people are not picking up. So if there is a way in which we could get facilities over there to either make it more accessible. I know you're not supposed to be walking down that side. They're supposed to be walking on the other side. However, people do what they want to do. And we need to make sure it's safe though. I had to tap dance and try to stay away from a lot of problems that were there. So if they could either be cleaned up or better signage could be put over there. I've been getting a lot of comments from neighbors and members of the public that are finding it a little difficult to get up to San Vicente after they park their cars. And then going along with garbage, one thing that I noticed out on the boulevard, along with the very long lines and lots of people coming out and having fun, was the need, and I think Councilmember Shine mentioned this last time, extra garbage pickups or some way in which we could get Athens to get out there. I know some people have commented that, in high populated areas, we need to have more garbage areas. So if we could get some people there or get Athens to do that, that would be great. We don't need the big things or whatever they're called, but we just need some extra trash bins. And then the last thing is I want to say, keep getting vaccinated. Today, we only had 4 new deaths and 161 new cases. And currently we're so close to nearing below 300 current hospitalizations. So play that clip of Mayor Pro Tem Meister on loop, get vaccinated, have fun, whatever you got to do. But thank you very much. And that's all my comments there.
Councilmember Shine.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Erickson, I hope there's a video of you doing the poop avoiding tap dance down that walkway. So I just wanted to congratulate our new city manager, soon to be elect, David Wilson. I am so excited for you and so honored to have you as our next city manager, and looking forward to working with you. I attended the Cal Cities Contract Seminar 1. It was very informative and enjoyed it very much. And that's all I have for today.
Okay, Councilmember D'Amico.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to join my colleagues in welcoming David to his new role. We have a lot for you to do, so get ready. I wanted to just talk about 4 quick items. The first is item 5D, which is regarding public space. I think I'm happy to support that. I want to move that forward.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. 5D is still on our regular agenda.
Oh, I thought that was moved to
It was not.
consent.
So.
Oh, there we go. Well, then you'll hear all this later. I have 3 more things to talk about. I wonder if we could hear from Paul at the next meeting about the $7 million, and was it that much that we received from the federal COVID recovery bill? And I think there's just sort of an assumption that it's going into our general fund, but I don't know. I mean, we haven't actually had a conversation about it. I think as a council, receiving those dollars for that purpose would make sense for us to have a conversation about where those dollars are going and how we think they might best impact our city. The second item is item 2G, which is on our consent calendar, and I know we all read our agendas, and I just want to say that it's May 17th, and we're 13 days from June 1st, 14 days, 30 days have September, April, June, and November. And I just want to thank my colleagues for joining me in this effort to get this building filled with, get those affordable housing units filled. I think we was a little uncomfortable for several people in several directions, but actual real people will be living in those affordable units on June 1st. And I think that's our hard work. And it's always a good reminder that that's the goal, getting people into housing. I think we're going to have a conversation later about our affordable housing buyback if you don't want to build housing. And I think you'll hear similar comments about the goal being getting people into housing. And finally, I sent to Kristen a couple of weeks ago a request that she add an item to our public safety agenda, and I wanted to talk about it with my colleagues here and Paul. And it's regarding public toilets. I think we need to at least have a public discussion in our public safety commission meeting about public toilets. And we either engage with our business community to ask them to allow people to use their public toilets and perhaps provide some incentive for them to do that, or we develop a plan to put public toilets on our streets. Because I just think nobody thinks it's acceptable to find human waste on the streets, and more we have that problem. And as more and more people are returning to our city, I think we're hearing more and more about that. So if there's no objection, I would like that to be agendized on our Public Safety Commission meeting. If there is objection or we want to talk about it, I can put an item on our next agenda to do that. But I think our public toilet problem needs some attention from our Public Safety Commission. And those are my comments, Mayor. Back to you.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Thank you. I just would mention that maybe that what Councilmember D'Amico brought up about public toilets, it might be a human social services conversation or human services commission conversation as well, or it might be the conversation should be there. Especially those are things that Councilmember Shine and I have raised at our homeless subcommittee meetings. So be happy to bring that up again at our next meeting and ask that it be agendized at Social Services Commission. So I'd also like to congratulate Dave Wilson on becoming our next city manager. And whatever Paul tells you, I am the nicest one. So just remember that and you'll be okay. Attendance-wise, only kidding, David. Attendance-wise, let's see, since our last meeting, I virtually attended SCAG's 2021 annual meeting of the General Assembly as the West Hollywood representative, and I virtually attended the Pride community meeting that was held by the Chamber of Commerce. I also attended a virtual panel on Road to Recovery for Restaurants in LA that was hosted by Union Bank. It was a little bit banky, but it was an interesting conversation, and there were some people from various restaurants and the LA Chamber of Commerce and the Black Business Chamber of Commerce as well. So it was an interesting conversation. I would like to ask the city manager to please update us on recent changes to masking and social distance requirements, at least where we're at right now, if he could, because the public is asking, as well as I know that we did get an email today about the noticing in multifamily housing about the masking and social distancing, but if someone could talk about that, the public is asking about it. Also wanted to confirm with the city manager what it looks like in terms of council being back in council chambers. I believe it is July. Public is asking about that as well and what that might look like. And regarding consent calendar, I would like to just say on 5E, on the East Side Gateway Lighting, I want to thank Councilmember Erickson for asking me to co-sponsor. I think it'll be a great way to market the East Side. It's a long time coming. And I also wanted to suggest something I didn't think of before, but possibly to have staff reach out to the Gateway project and see if maybe they would want to partner as well, because if we can, try to expand on this and utilize what resources our businesses have, that would be great. Maybe we can take it a little bit further down Santa Monica Boulevard if the Gateway is willing to contribute in some fashion. I did also want to let people know about two important meetings coming up. One is a virtual neighborhood meeting on Wednesday, May 19th at 5 p.m. regarding Robertson Lane. Then there will also be a virtual public scoping meeting, what we've all been asking for, an evening virtual public scoping meeting for the housing element environmental impact report. And that will be on Tuesday, May 25th at 6:30 p.m. So these are important topics of conversation, and I hope that the community will make time to attend these virtual meetings, especially since it's so easy. You just have to find your Zoom and then you're there. So, and the Zoom links, by the way, are on the city's website on the calendar. So you can find that there or call council offices if you can't find it. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. have a few comments tonight. I know item 5E was added to our consent agenda. I do know also that Councilmember D'Amico and I were the council subcommittee years ago now that also discuss this idea at some point. So obviously I'm supportive. We already discussed this idea a few years ago, and I'm just bringing it up because I know there've been a couple of other items that have come forward that didn't reference past council action. And I just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, we're not hiring multiple consultants and wasting time and resources, you know, making items to approve things we've already approved and we think are in the works. So I just wanted to raise that for staff to make sure to keep an eye on things like that for us. I know in transition, sometimes that won't always get known, but hopefully we can kind of keep a record of those things. With regard to other comments, I want to congratulate our youth scholarship recipients. The West Hollywood Youth Scholarship Program awards a $2,000 scholarship that can be used for any expense incurred in pursuing education at a university. And the program was created in 2007. It recognizes the importance of education in our community, encourages young people to perform community service, and the scholarship funds come entirely from individual and community donations. This year's recipients are Reina Zabrowski and Kevin Birukim. Reina Zabrowski will be graduating from the Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies in June and plans to attend the University of Southern California to pursue a bachelor's degree in health and human services with a goal of pursuing a career in speech pathology. Reina has performed over 150 volunteer hours with Friendship Circle of Los Angeles, working with special needs children. Kevin Birukim will be graduating from the University Senior High in June and plans to attend California State University Northridge with a goal of pursuing a career in dentistry. Kevin has performed over 150 volunteer hours with Teen Talk by Jewish Big Brothers Big Sisters Los Angeles, working with teens suffering from depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Congratulations to you both. Thank you for your many hours of service and best of luck to you as you pursue your higher education. I also want to congratulate Robin Eason, the city's long-range planning manager, who has been selected as a winner of the Women in Sustainability Leadership Awards for 2021. The Women in Sustainability Leadership Awards highlights women innovators who have become a powerful force in creating a more sustainable world. So congratulations, Robin, and thank you for your leadership. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, May 18th at 6 p.m., the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health is hosting a vaccine town hall for parents. The town hall can be viewed live on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at LA Public Health. So anyone who is interested in that information, please feel free to access it. At this time, it remains a city requirement that landlords and property managers post information in public areas of multifamily residential buildings regarding the latest COVID health orders. One flyer is about COVID-19 health and safety tips, and the other flyer is about updated LA County guidance regarding informal social gatherings. These flyers, which were last updated on May 4th, are each available on the city's website at weho.org/coverthatface. The CDC, the state and county messages are all getting updated. We know we're getting different messages from different places, and we're trying to keep that all in line so it's easy to understand, hopefully also easy to enforce. And most importantly, that we're educating everyone about what the right protocols are right now. At this time, in alignment with LA County orders, unvaccinated people should continue to use face coverings and adhere to social distancing. Only vaccinated people may consider not using masks in non-crowded outdoor areas. And just a couple of other announcements and questions. First, I want to share that I participated in the West Hollywood Tourism Marketing Fund meeting. Recently, I was invited to speak there. This is a group that was created out of the negotiated agreement between cannabis businesses in West Hollywood. And while their name may be changing, their intention is to help create more of our tourism economy around the cannabis industry that is in West Hollywood. If you are interested in knowing more about them, you can feel free to email me so I can connect you to the folks who are organizing. But I just wanted to thank them for the work that they're doing to keep the businesses coordinated and informed in our city. I also participated in the swearing in of many appointees, many new appointees, and I just want to congratulate them all once again, commissioners and board members who are new and serving our community. It's great to have new ambassadors who help spread the word about what our city is doing to new folks in the city. I participated in the Public Safety Working Group, the Executive Board meeting, and the annual municipal seminar with contract cities. I participated in the Clean Power Alliance board meeting representing our city. I participated in the Metro scoping meetings, and thank you to everyone who has done so and provided both public and written comment on your preferred alignment and any other comments that you have for Metro. Also excited to have participated in another ribbon cutting, and so it's really exciting to see not only our existing businesses coming back to life, but new businesses choosing West Hollywood as their preferred destination. We're excited to welcome more business and more activity to the city in a healthy and safe way. I know this is an exciting addition to the East Side, and congratulations to everyone who's part of Breakfast Republic. I'm sure it's going to be a very fun and hot brunch destination. I have a couple of safety questions that perhaps can be addressed during our city manager's report. There were concerns raised over the past couple of weeks about safety regarding out on Robertson as well as at the Classic Cat. And I just want to make sure if, as it is alleged, that out on Robertson is creating a safety issue, that we know that it's addressed here and that we're doing something about it. Same thing with Classic Cat. If there are issues there, perhaps they need to have a meeting with our Business License Commission to address them, but I just wanted to have an update on what's going on in both of those locations to respond to some public concerns here for the public. Last but not least, I know that we'll be celebrating Pride, One City through One City, One Pride, 40 Days of Pride, beginning on Harvey Milk Day this Saturday. But we also know that there's not too far away an event happening called Out Loud. And while it may be in person at the Coliseum, it's also available via global stream for everyone to participate in on June 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Some folks from West Hollywood are helping to make it happen. And for those who are interested in celebrating Pride through that virtual event, it will be available to you. I'll now turn it over to our city manager for his comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I apologize. This report's going to be a little bit more in depth and longer than normal. To start it off, I am going to ask for Michael Che to jump on and share his screen and provide an exciting update for One City, One Pride. So, Michael, if you can take over, do it.
Yes. Hi, how are you? My name is Mike Che. I'm the arts coordinator for the city of West Hollywood. And I'm here to provide an update on item 2I with per Mayor Pro Tem Meister's request. First of all, thanks Mayor and City Council for all the shout outs you did for One City, One Pride. I'm not going to repeat what you said. It lasts 40 days from Harvey Milk Day until the end of June. There are 19 programs. Everything is free to attend this year. And because we planned it and there still is an order to do everything in a virtual manner, all of these events will be virtual. However, there are a couple of events that or exhibitions that you can experience as a self-guided tour on your own or as an outdoor exhibition. Everything is up to date on our website at weho.org/pride. And it's a very wide range of things from podcasts, online videos, history tour, which is fantastic. And we do have a video that we made to promote it this year. So I'll play that for all of you now. And it has pictures from some of our past years of One City, One Pride. So I will show that right now. Can you see that? Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can, Mike.
Okay, great. Great. So yeah, please, we encourage the entire community to join us. As I said, everything is free to attend, although you are welcome to make donations to the various nonprofits and artists who have put these things together on behalf of the city. So thank you.
Great. And there was music playing, it just wasn't very loud. So just a couple of responses to questions that came from the council before I do my detailed report. In regards to the street cleaning areas and Athens, we're in contact with them, and facilities will definitely inspect those areas that were mentioned tonight. There was questions regarding the private bathrooms. This is something that Corey Plank and her team are looking into as part of the homeless outreach. So I'll make sure that we provide a memorandum or some sort of update to council so you know where we are in that process. In regards to the emergency funds that eventually will get to the city of West Hollywood, I'll do that kind of in conjunction with the governor's budget that just came out. There'll be more information following as we come to the council with our budget. As recently announced, the governor is identifying a significant surplus somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 billion. The plan is to put significant resources into homeless programs, money for renters in distress, money from homeowners in distress, mental health, professional health services, and also additional money for infrastructure and other types of investments for the state. In regards to the dollars that are allotted to the city of West Hollywood, those come in with certain strings attached so that there has to be accounting that we can justify how those monies are expended. We've had significant expenditures over the last year, and we would want to use that record keeping to offset that money as much as possible. But again, in terms of resources available for the council to allocate to the community and the response, we still have sufficient reserves to do that. So that'll be a more detailed and nuanced conversation as we bring the budget before all of you. The questions regarding public safety, and the captain is still on the phone. Classic Cat, we are having code issues, code compliance issues with them. They are somewhat of a challenge. The details of that is being crafted and developed by the code compliance division, and I don't want to speak too much. There's an administrative process that they're following, and we will be addressing the challenges of Classic Cat through the Business License Commission and through code compliance. The short answer on Robertson Boulevard, it is not creating any public safety issues for the city. What we're seeing so far is that it's still ramping up as a community resource. There's still work to do, both in terms of the activation and in terms of coordinating with different venues and different businesses who want to be on the boulevard. But from a public safety standpoint, it is not an issue. And Ed, if you want to jump on, maybe you can be a little bit more articulate than I am.
Sure. Yeah, sir. Let me start this. Okay, recently there was an advertisement article authored by a home security company which purported to have conducted a crime study. The company listed the most dangerous cities in California in 2021, which included the city of West Hollywood. Since that time, other similar stories have surfaced. Additionally, there have been concerns voiced about the public safety response to the reopening of our city. As I mentioned at a previous city council meeting, it is difficult to determine what methodologies these companies use and how they arrived at their findings. It appears that may have used a formula or methodology that is not used in law enforcement or endorsed by the FBI when looking at crime. No matter what methodology they used, their conclusion was completely erroneous. West Hollywood continues to be a safe city, and our crime statistics indicate that. With regard to our preparation for the reopening of West Hollywood, we have worked closely with Public Safety Director Kristen Cook to ensure a safe city reopening. And least I forget a sincere thank you and appreciation to Kristen, City Manager Paul Arvalo, and the entire City Council for giving us the flexibility to enhance our public safety service to our community as we reopen. Aside from our regular daily patrol duties, some of the things we have been doing are assigning daily footbeat deputies on the east side and the west side of town, and assigning deputies to the parks. We have deputies working with code compliance on the weekends and deputies working at the Out on Robertson closure. Our entertainment policing team is working evenings to provide security for West Hollywood nightlife, and our cops team is working during the daytime hours. Prior to the pandemic, Part 1 crimes had dropped almost 1/3. During the months of March and April of 2020, West Hollywood experienced the lowest crime rate of Part 1 crimes in the history of the city. As of April of this year, Part 1 crimes are still down 4% when compared to this point last year. From a public safety concern, these numbers are extraordinary. Suffice to say, this is due to the hard work of our public safety collaborative. Again, please rest assured, West Hollywood is a safe city to live, to work, and to enjoy. Collectively, your city public safety department, along with your patrol deputies, your special teams at West Hollywood, Sheriff Station, and West Hollywood Code Enforcement have endeavored to keep West Hollywood safe while ensuring sensitivity and compassion for our entire community.
Great, thank you, Ed. And that's important. When we report to you, we report with standards that are used across the country, and others don't have to follow those standards. So it makes it kind of difficult for us to compare data because we don't really know the data points they're working with. But based on the historical trends, our numbers are really good. A little bit more on public safety, then I have a few other items that came up through council member comments. One, a reminder, and I think if it's been said, it's worth saying it again. Vaccinations, kids 12 to 15 are eligible. Visit vaccinatelacounty.com for more information. Please get your vaccines. Mask guidance, yes, it's been somewhat of a roller coaster. The CDC went from being too conservative to maybe too liberal with their information, and everybody kind of got a little bit whipsawed. Right now, the county is maintaining the standards that we've been working with, and okay, sorry, technical problems. And it's not going to change in the county until June 15th, and that's when they plan to align with the new CDC guidelines. So for masks, they're required for large events, public transportation, businesses and workplaces. Masks are required for unvaccinated people outdoors, even when distancing, at least when distancing can't be maintained. And masks are not required for fully vaccinated people who are outdoors unless they're in crowded areas. So those standards haven't changed. Again, the announcement from the CDC took a lot of people by surprise. It was good news. I think it's a good reason for people to get vaccinated, that they can be mask-free indoors and out. But for now, the county is continuing with the current guidelines, which ties into the question about the council chambers. So yes, our goal is the meeting in July, that we will be in person at the council chamber, but that as of now, it's a limited in person, and it would be for the council and key staff. We will continue to take public comment via remote tools such as Zoom. So we'll be able to get public comment. If we are allowed to occupy the building in any manner, it would still likely be limited capacity. So we would maintain a hybrid system for that meeting and maybe going forward. I think that There is a desire to be more flexible for community input, and people being able to chime in via Zoom is a lot easier than having them get in their car and drive to the council meeting. But that'll be for you and the next city manager to work out. Also for the council, we're looking at the look ahead agenda. The next meeting, June 7th, should not be super heavy. And even if it is, I won't be there. I'm going to be out of town celebrating my 60th birthday. But the June 21st meeting does look like it's going to be heavy. We're going to have at least 2 items on there. One is the budget, and then one is going to be the hotel item that Laura Langer will be coming back with a couple of ordinances for the council to discuss and consider. It would be wise for us to consider starting that council meeting at 5 as opposed to 6 to allow for the discussion and what I anticipate being a robust public input process. So that's just something to put on your radars. And at this time, that concludes my report, unless you have questions for me or for Ed, who hasn't turned off his camera yet.
Councilmember D'Amico.
So Paul, someone wrote to me about the grocery stores, some of them telling their customers customers don't need to wear masks, but it sounds like, to be clear, that shopping indoors, especially at a place like a grocery store, customers need to have their masks on. So perhaps, I'm sure we have that list somewhere. Someone can send them all an email and remind them we're under the county ordinance.
Yeah, we heard major change. I think Trader Joe's, Target, a number of other stores have said people can come in maskless. But still, we're under the county order. Also, what's really a challenge, it just becomes the honor system. I don't know for fact who on this Zoom call got vaccinated. I mean, it's just an honor system. So people are going to be going in, and we're again, what is it? It's kind of like the goodwill. You're just hoping people are doing the right thing. So, but the short answer, Councilmember D'Amico, is the county order is still in effect, at least until June 15th. So yes, when people are indoors, they should be wearing a mask.
Any other comments? Councilmember Erickson.
I just forgot to congratulate David, and I didn't want him to think I did. And so, I just don't want to start off on a bad foot. But no, congratulations, David. I'm marking 2021 as the year of the intern, because some interns are rising to the ranks of West Hollywood. So congratulations.
Yeah. And on that, when I leave, I'll talk a little bit more. But the process, as the mayor mentioned, was an amazing process. And really proud of everyone who participated in it, and including others from the organization. And yes, heartfelt congratulations to David.
Thank you very much. And with that, Madam City Clerk, what is the fiscal impact of our consent agenda tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. The fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar, with the addition of items 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5E, and the removal of item 2I, is $1,465,508 in expenditures, $0 in revenue, and $0 in waived fees.
Thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Councilmember Shine.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Aye.
Mayor Horvath.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. And now we will turn to item 4A, which is 2021-2022 Affordable Housing in Lieu Fee Update and Amendment to the Master Fee Schedule. I'll turn it to staff for a brief report. I don't believe we have any comments on this item.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I am Annie Ruiz, Revenue Manager. Joining me is Serena Quijano, Director of Technology Services. Brian Lee, Property Development Manager, and Allison Bartel, Project Development Administrator. This item provides the proposed affordable housing in lieu resolution for fiscal year 2022. We can go directly to City Council questions, or Allison can provide a brief overview of key recommendations in the staff report. Thank you.
Okay. Since we have no comments, we can get into questions and discussion right away. Who would like to begin? Mayor Pro Tem Meister, I know you had questions, so maybe we start with you.
Well, it's actually more like comments based on the conversation we started at the last meeting. It seems that the fees that are on there are not equivalent to what we're actually spending per unit. So I think, and I don't want to speak for Councilmember D'Amico, but I'll speak for Councilmember D'Amico that there was a concern that we weren't really getting the amount in an in lieu fee that would actually pay for a unit. And so we wanted to have a discussion on that.
And Mayor, I did talk with the staff. We had a very robust conversation for 30 or 40 minutes about this. And I think where I landed was that I support this item, and that I had spoken subsequently with John Leonard and mentioned that in my council member comments, or if this item was discussed tonight, that we would want the staff to investigate how to amend the fees collected to more closely reflect the cost of what we now know is $750,000 a unit instead of the amount that it is, which is based on the TCAC, or the California cost per unit that comes out of Sacramento. And I think generally my impulse in this regard is to make the fees match, do two things really. Really one thing at the result of the second, which is make the fees match the cost of the unit. And understandably, you know, we pay $120,000 often, that's what we get asked. But coincidentally, that's the gap in some way between the TCAC number and the actual number. So we're making up the gap in between those two numbers, at least conceptually. But really, the idea is that if it costs $750,000 for a unit, at some point, a developer of a 5-unit building or a 4-unit building or a 2-unit building would find that handing over a significant amount of money, $150,000 to the city, instead of building a unit and creating an asset on their property, which would then be filled with an affordable unit, which would kick off income. That's the goal. We have, you know, some 10 or 20 of these projects every year. And I do understand that many of them, because of the bonuses and multipliers that currently come from Sacramento, many of them do put units on site. But really, I know we cannot mandate that it happens, but I think we can put in place policies and fees that make doing it part of what developers want to do. So that was what I was going to say in my council member comments. I do support this item as it is, but I do think it's worth this council and future councils' efforts to identify the actual cost of units and identify for developers the benefits of building units on site so that more units are built over time. Thank you, Mayor.
And if I can just piggyback onto that, I mean, I know we had this discussion when we were talking about the loan, the financing of the land, of the property that we're going to be building some housing on. I think it was EAH, and the subject came up of look how expensive it is. How do we make it lower? So if it's not, if it isn't $750,000, then it should be, you know, $650,000 when in reality, and we should make sure that what's built, you know, that costs are lower if that is what our fees are telling us that they should be. So it's sort of like you can't have it both ways, and it really should be studied. And we should figure out, yes, it is 640,000 or it is 750,000, but whichever it is, let's be consistent with our fees and our financing.
We now have a public comment on this item that came in, so I'm going to allow that person to speak, and then we can take a vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Jordan David. Jordan, if you could please press *6, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. We've already built more luxury housing that stays empty than there are West Hollywood residents living on the street or paying well over 25% of their income to rent. In lieu fees should not exist. Allowing developers to create housing projects exclusively for the rich, with in lieu fees going to projects exclusively for the poor or middle class, means that you are effectively segregating the population by class. Our goal should not be segregation, but to eliminate class and create a thriving community for all. Let's become a city with a moral backbone and cancel in lieu fees altogether. If a developer refuses to include the small number of affordable units required in their building, they should not be allowed to build in WeHo. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Mayor, that was our only speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. And the city's inclusionary policy does contemplate, that units are built within buildings that include market rate units, low, very low, and moderate income units mixed in. That's often how units are developed. There are times where that's not. And I just wanted to ask staff to comment on whether the change in fee will contribute more to the problem that we're seeing in terms of an increased cost per unit for development.
Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I mean, we had a very robust conversation with Councilmember D'Amico, and I think we all recognize that producing affordable housing under the state process is more expensive than a developer can do it in a market rate project, because the costs associated and everything else. And so I think that, from a public policy perspective, we completely support the idea of putting units within all projects in the city, as when we can. And we are going to look at what the actual cost for an affordable housing development per unit under the state rules, and see if we could bring the lieu fee up to that number. And perhaps that will provide more of an incentive to put the units in the market rate projects as they come forward. And there's another part of your question. Was that it, or is there more to it?
I just want to make sure that while the intention behind this is certainly to make sure that we have the funds necessary to equal what would be what we would need to create a housing unit, that by doing this, especially for the very small projects, that we're not creating, we're not contributing to the cost increase.
Sure. Yeah, we will look at all what we can do to benchmark the actual cost to the in lieu fee, and that's what we're committed to do.
Great.
And that's what we do regularly. We study these fees, regularly. They have to be updated. And so, we're happy to take that direction and study this again. We did it in 2019. We did it again previously in 2013. And I think, Mayor, what you said is exactly right. What we want to make sure is that we're also not unduly hindering development. And that's part of doing that study, is looking at setting forth like a 10% return or whatever a fair market return would be, and making sure that the proposed fee structure aligned with that, while at the same time balancing what was previously said by Councilmember D'Amico and Mayor Pro Tem Meister, that we want to make sure that we're maximizing this fee collected, and that we're saying, we're incentivizing building those units on site because it's a lower cost, and it aligns with our values of the city to have inclusionary housing spread throughout.
Mayor Pro Tem?
And just to clarify, I mean, as far as I know, 11 plus units, they have to be inclusionary. There is no in lieu fee. So this is really regarding 10 or fewer units. And I think the idea is not to prevent development, but basically to incentivize having the units on site.
That's correct. It's 10 or fewer unless you use a state density bonus. And if you use a state density bonus, you're required to build on site. You cannot pay the fee.
And Mayor, I would just add that somewhere around 2.5 units, the cost for building the unit is cheaper than the in lieu fee. It's possible that at $110,000, you can't build a 600 square foot addition to an already under construction building. But by the time you get to the third unit, you can add 600 square feet of habitable space to a property. And certainly by the time you get to the fourth unit, you're adding that space and beginning to pay close to $100,000 more than the cost of a unit. And by the time you would get to the 10th unit, you're paying, $450,000 more than the cost of building a unit, which is an asset and produces income. And if you're doing that, it's just because you don't want poor people in your building. And we just can't allow that. As Jordan said, as we all believe, there are some microclimates in the development world around construction, but in the end, it's somewhere around, every duplex can add a 600 square foot unit, and then has a resource, has an actual asset that they can collect rent on. So that's the now gone on too long during this council meeting, not of what our long 30-minute conversation was about, trying to round up those ideas and make them deliver units to the city.
So would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I will happily move this item.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Aye.
Mayor Horvath.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to item 4B, which is commission appointments and reappointments. I'll turn it to Councilmember D'Amico.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take one moment to thank two of my commissioners who will be leaving their posts. The first is Larry Block, who has been serving as a public facilities commissioner, in a way keeping the seat warm for Donna Sauer, who was serving in that position prior to that. I haven't yet had a conversation with anyone about taking over the Public Facilities Commission, but I do want to talk for a moment about Larry's commitment to our city. His original sort of efforts to stand up in front of our city council starting almost 10 years ago turned into him running the gayest store in the world, running for city council twice, being on the disability advisory board because of his own disabilities, helping to guide our city in that way, and then serving on the Public Facilities Commission, and more recently taking over WehoVille and guiding some of the thoughts that people not just in our city hear about West Hollywood, but across the globe, with I believe more than 100,000 readers every week. So to Larry, I say officially from this council member, and then from the entire city council, thank you for your years of service to the city. And I'm guessing you're not done, it's just changed, and you'll probably be back in some capacity. And we can only hope that that my future telling is correct, because we need you, Larry. We need lots more like you. And then I wanted to talk for a moment about Marcy and Marcy Norton, who has served for more than 10 years on the Public Safety Commission. And Marcy and her mother, who worked in our library from, I believe, the late 1950s until she retired and then lived in retirement here in the city. And Marcy took care of her and her father. Sadly, Rita died, and Marcy continued to serve on the Public Safety Commission. And I think in no small way, Marcy and I managed to change much of what happens in that commission. And much of the reason now why it will exist as a Public Safety Commission as opposed to a Public Crime Report Commission is from the hard work on Marcy on the inside, continually asking for our public safety to be about safety, continuing to work with our code enforcement people to get code enforcement to report to our Public Safety Commission as well. And my deep, deep appreciation to Marcy's more than 10 years on that commission. And I believe when you've served on a commission for more than 10 years, our city awards you with a street sign with your name. I remember that happening a few years back. And so Marcy, start thinking about how you would like that street sign to read. Marcy Court, Marcy Way, Marcy, however it is. I'm happy to make that a reality. And finally, I wanted to appoint Danny Roman to the Public Safety Commission. Danny is a small business owner in our city. Many of you know him. He has a very public business that has a very complicated relationship with our street life and our street. And I think that Danny has some frustrations with our public safety efforts. And I think our Public Safety Commission will help to inform Mr. Roman about the complications of public safety, and I would think inform our public safety personnel about the complications of running a business in our city. So I feel super honored to have had the opportunity to talk about all three of those people and their service to our city. So thank you very much, Mayor, for my time.
Of course. Thank you for completing your, well, at least one of your appointments, and we wish them the best of luck in their service. And now we will turn to item 5D, the program to encourage privately owned public space. I believe we do have some public comments, but I would turn it first to my colleagues if they have any report that they would like to share before we do that.
Councilmember Shine, do you want to start?
Yeah, thank you. I am, first of all, Mayor Pro Tem Meister, thank you so much for working on this item together. It's been great. I just want to make a clarification. There seemed to be some confusion from some of the comments we received. So I just want to make some clarifications. The first one is that the rooftop public spaces will not apply to residentially zoned projects. Only the mixed use and commercials projects where there is a possibility of public access to a roof is where the rooftop portion will apply. The pocket parks can apply to residential or also to the mixed use and commercial. The other thing is that these spaces would only be developed if the property owners wanted it. So there's no city requirement. There were some comments submitted that had that assumption too. Anything in a residential zone would likely have limited hours, just like our city-run pocket parks, like Havenhurst, for example, which closes at dusk. The other part too, we have had comments in, we have had a lot of comments in support, and we have comments in opposition, and comments with concerns. And because of this, should this item pass, Mayor Pro Tem Meister and I would like to direct staff to do outreach and education on this item via a symposium before any zone text amendment is brought forward for consideration, so that we can educate and get feedback as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, you know, I think what we envisioned, especially after the tree symposium, our urban forest and biodiversity symposium, is we envisioned green spaces because what we found out was that in the city, most of our trees, for example, are in the single-family neighborhoods or in Plummer Park, and parts of the other parts of our city, which have multifamily buildings, don't. And I think the thought is that, obviously we want to contribute in a positive way to the environment. We also want to look at this as a way to bring community together. I know that people walk by my front yard, which is very colorful right now, and stop and they just stop and look, and they take pictures, and they talk, and people who I would have never met before, and they ask me what things are, and I have to tell them I have no idea, but they're enjoyable. They enjoy it anyway, and they the gardens attract the bees and the butterflies and the birds, and it really could be a lovely thing in the middle of a very exciting city to have these areas for those projects that are interested in it. Also, the other thing is that we need to look at this as passive space. This is not like an active, we're going to have parties on the roof. Yeah, this isn't about that. This is really about developing areas that people can enjoy, read a book, just as I said, contemplate the vegetation, and looking at it that way. And so the suggestion about doing this symposium, because the Urban Forest and Biodiversity Symposium was really so successful and so educational, and we were able to have the question and answer to be able to really drill down what is it that we can be doing. I think that's the best way to start this process, is to have that show people what other cities, what other areas, what other cities all around the world are doing. And I know that Mayor Horvath and I once brought forward an item about doing rooftop gardens, because it was something we saw that they were doing in Paris. These are the types of things we need to be looking at moving forward if we want to keep a planet going here. So it starts at home, right? So that's the thought behind this. We don't want to scare anybody. We aren't trying to force this on anybody. We understand the concerns. We want to hear more about the concerns, but let's do it in a fashion where everybody knows exactly what we're talking about by having this symposium. So if staff could possibly, if this is approved, if we could approve it with the symposium and dedicate some funding for that from the council special projects, or if you would like us to come back with a very specific item, we can either come back with it, or we can have staff come back. I also just remembered that I don't know if the staff report mentioned UDAS as being the division that would be kind of leading this charge. Obviously, zone text amendments are done by our planning department, but this type of thing in terms of design and having the discussion with the community would be a function of UDAS. And the other thing I wanted to just bring up is incentives. We are not looking at incentives that would create more density, mass, scale, height. We are looking at incentives, for example, swapping out private or common space for green space outside that other people can, enjoy. And the benefit of something like that could be that by not having terraces on the sides of a building, the mass and scale of the building actually might decrease, and there would be privacy for the neighbors as opposed to having someone looking out their terrace into their window. So there are there are definitely benefits of this, and those are the types of things we'd like to explore if our colleagues help us vote this forward. Thank you.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, we'll turn it to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker for this item is Adam Darvish. Adam, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I wanted to welcome and congratulate Dave Wilson, our new city Manager. That will start in a couple of months. Sorry that I missed my first comment, but wanted on this item to thank Councilmember Shine for moving this item forward and Mayor Pro Tem Meister for co-sponsoring this item. This one is close to many residents' heart, including mine. I'm so glad to see it on the agenda. I did try to comment last time on community gardens, although I was multitasking, had a call from work and got distracted, so it confused all of you. But to me, this is similar, and we need to see more of these on the agenda as part of innovative ideas or projects for all of us to have better quality of life for us, for visitors, vacationers, and everyone that's in the city. I read the staff report. I didn't see that it was mandatory. It was more of a voluntary. And as Mayor Pro Tem Meister, I think, said, all of us have spaces as homeowners that the public is using for their dogs or green space that they enjoy. I got a bunch of flowers around the property and the yellow desert museum tree that I had to plant. After I got a penalty from the city, which I gladly paid. The last owner that made the promise for a tree and went on a search on the internet. So it became a fun project. I enjoy watching the bees and all the creatures flying around on the yellow desert museum plant that has beautiful yellow flowers. So thank you again for this item. Again, I'm hoping that we'll see more of these to keep the city green, compared to New York and Chicago and other cities. That's why all of us live in West Hollywood, to see more of the nature and more of the creatures that are around. One more item that I wanted to add is animal rights. I see a lot of dead squirrels on the sidewalks, especially in Beverly Hills. I found that there's poison actually for them. So hoping to see that in the future to ban those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Our next and final speaker is Charlie Jasper. Charlie, please press *6 and you will have 2 minutes to speak on this item.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Pro Tem Mayor, and City Council members. I'm speaking about 5D, which is slated to be something like Gramercy Park. A little bit before that, I am a security professional, and so I have to do crime stats for a living. Gramercy Park is controlled by the 13th precinct of the New York Police Department, which is the third finest police department in the country, right after LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department. And I have to say this, that it is the 57th most dangerous out of all 69 precincts in New York City. Dangerous, of course, being a loose term here because of all the crimes that happened there, 1,376 were property crimes. Gramercy Park has about 27,000 residents, whereas West Hollywood has about 36,000. And what we're looking at here is interspersing them amongst new developments, potentially throughout residential neighborhoods. And so while it's smaller, it invites more opportunities for criminal mischief and, larceny, theft, and things like that, as well as loitering, vagrancy, and other crimes. So that comes to my next question is, who's going to be responsible for maintaining it? Are we looking at, for developments, like condo developments, higher HOA dues because the owners there are responsible for maintaining it? Is this going to be a contract with the city that all taxpayers are paying for? Who will be responsible for securing it in these purely residential buildings? Most residential buildings in West Hollywood don't have 24-hour security or maintenance on hand, whereas in a commercial and mixed-use building, you are more likely to find that. So I would urge you to amend the staff report and to reconsider putting these public access spaces still have them in mixed use or commercial buildings where there is an expectation of public access, but not in purely residential buildings, as it also creates a noise disturbance.
That was our final speaker, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments for our colleagues? Councilmember Erickson.
I just had some clarifying questions that I would love the co-authors to write, because it sounds like the item has support. So, but one, just from the things that have been coming in from the public. So could you tell me who is maintaining and securing these spaces? because I have noticed in other areas where they've done it in public along buildings, they become issues for the community because individuals who are experiencing homelessness are there, and then that becomes an issue. But other things in terms of security and public safety, who's maintaining and ultimately paying for this stuff?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the private property owners would be responsible for that. But keep in mind, just like we call private property owners called code compliance, and there's safety parameters that are going to be required, those are still in place. So, for example, if a and I think Rick could probably actually speak to some of it, Rick Abramson, as he's on here, and Helen Collins, some of the concerns regarding safety and use of the pocket parks, the examples we have. I asked the same question about Havenhurst, and maybe Helen can speak to whether we've really had any of these issues, because that's a pocket park we do have. It is maintained by the city, but it's in a private property, and there really haven't been any, what I was told, there haven't been any really safety issues that have come up in the ones we do have.
Correct, Councilmember Shine. At Havenhurst, we have not had any issues with homelessness or other types of issues. We have had some at other parks, but they're easily addressed with our block by block security and other methods. But we haven't had any major issues over the years, and those parks have been open for over 10 years. They are maintained by the city.
And these parks would be maintained by the private property owners. But again, this would be something that they take on because they want to take it on, and they're getting something in return. For example, if they're developing a project where maybe they can swap out private open space, building terraces, and have that green space instead as an incentive. And again, that could have positive impacts on neighbors as well. So that's the model. I don't know if Rick Abramson wants to chime in. Rick, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, Council. Rick Abramson, City Architect, Urban Design Architecture Studio. Yes, I think you've covered most of it. I think depending on how the item develops with some of the incentives, but I think most of these issues can be addressed. I would point out that in most multifamily housing, that there are significant common open spaces that already have to be maintained by HOAs. So in this case, that maintenance area, instead of it being a rec room or other larger common open space, it would go towards the maintenance of the pocket space, the green space. In addition, as Helen was mentioning, there are third parties who are already under contract that know the protocols to keep them safe and secure. And I think we envision that most likely they would be contracted. That would certainly be an option for the property owners to contract with them as well. And they have a whole protocol when they close at dusk. So we think through a combination of mindful and thoughtful design and careful operational protocols, these could be fairly successful spaces and really add to that green space component that we're very short on in the city.
My last question is just to reconfirm, they are voluntary, correct? This is encouraged. Okay, great. There have been some comments. Okay, thank you so much. That's all my stuff, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any other Councilmember
D'Amico? I support this. I guess I just want to raise two interests of mine. I think when there is a symposium on this, it would be helpful to define what public space is, and does it exist only in the three-dimensional realm? Is there a digital public space that has some agency in this case. You know, if a building provided free Wi-Fi or free access to some kind of internet services, or provided free services via the internet, I think if we're going to ask for the market to drive this, we need to allow the market to drive what it is that we think of as public space. Because I would guess the five of us, and maybe even UDAS included, can't necessarily define what the full set of public space options are with respect to things that make the community better. And I would just sort of also wonder aloud how we would value the public space against the value of a requirement of our current ordinances. So, for example, yes, a large garden like Havenhurst, which really I think is probably 25 by 100 feet, you know, it might be as large as 2,500 square feet, has some value. And 2 chairs and a nice bush and a reading lamp has a significantly different value. But both, I think, are public spaces, both serve a purpose, both have a reason to exist in West Hollywood, or a fountain, or or a butterfly sanctuary, or some set of things. So I'm really interested in what the definition of public space is, and then how that value is assigned as we move into trading that against our current ordinances. As I said, I do support this. I do think there's a real reason to begin this discussion. But I'm not 100% sure that the only version is a sort of idyllic 2,000 square foot garden like the ones that we have produced so far, which came, by the way, at kind of extraordinary cost to the city as a negotiating tool for the development of those 2 housing projects, based on a developer's interest in providing that public space for those units, for good reason, which is this is the sort of the ordinance version of that in that developers, that investors set of interests generally, and we know they work out. Those are really nice public parks. Our own city at Laurel has created a similar kind of public park around what continues to remain, for all intents and purposes, a private building, but it is a public park around a private building. So I would say with that, I'm happy to vote yes on this, and I'm sure one or the 2 of you will make a motion.
Yeah, if I could just bring up just 2 more points. And one is that the Havenhurst and Detroit, as you know, they were actually city-owned property. So this is a little different because this would be property that, you know, they're private property owners, and they already own the property. It's not us selling the property to them and getting something out of it by selling them the property. So it's a little different dynamic. And I also wanted to mention that I think with this item, we can really also pursue looking at commercial conversions to housing. Because if we look at commercial buildings, they typically don't have terraces, and they may have some common space, but maybe not open space. And that's something that we can look at as well, because they have ground floors that can be altered more easily than trying to, you know, put some terraces on an 8-story building or something. So that's something else that we can be looking at when we look at this item. And again, this is really a way for us to start this conversation. And I wondered if Council wants us to come back with an item on the symposium, or can we vote on that tonight?
I'm happy to offer some comment on that if we're able to speak on this item. So I want to thank my colleagues for their work on it. I think it's certainly it references, I think, the best of what this idea possibly represents. But I think we're asking for a zone text amendment just a little bit too early, because I think there's a lot that is good, but as Councilmember D'Amico indicated, there's potential for this to manifest in a way that we don't quite envision if we don't wordsmith it correctly and be sort of precise in our intention. So it sounds like you're already working with UDAS, and I'm wondering if we could add long-range planning to that, you know, for discussion purposes, and, you know, have them explore it a little bit more. You know, if you want to add the symposium to tonight's motion, I'm certainly supportive of that as well. But just to get a little more clarity before we move into directing a zone text amendment, because I think we've heard some concerns from the public that I think have been addressed by your comments tonight in some way, but I think we also heard from one of our colleagues about, you know, some concern about if we're not quite clear with our language. And so I'm just wondering if we could do it in a step-by-step process in that way, that we direct staff to work on this, to come up with a symposium to engage the community in the discussion and come back to us with some recommendations before we actually move forward with implementing a zone text amendment. Just those are my thoughts.
I'm happy to jump in here. I'm happy to start with an exploration of this, and long-range planning was already on the staff report, so they were already noted as being involved in it. Unfortunately, UDAS was left off that, so we just have to make sure that Rick's team is on it, especially if we start this with a symposium. Maybe somebody can remind me how much we spent on the symposium for the, somebody apparently is looking into that as we speak.
Ding.
Yeah, so that we can approve a budget for it. And happy to take this in steps as, and I hope Councilmember Shine is as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm also happy to take this in steps. And I would also say that as we develop these ideas, part of the, other than just referencing prior items that had passed, the idea of putting those in there, as you saw, was to make sure we're incorporating some of those ideas that had previously passed into these spaces. And let's make sure that we also work on having native plants and fauna. And I think that was actually not in the staff report, but somebody has passed this recently, I believe. I don't know if it was Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem or John D'Amico and Mayor Pro Tem, but let's make sure we're making those considerations as well.
And I was just told by staff to please allocate, if we can, $5,000 towards the symposium. And because we can do this online, it will be, I'm sure, now I'm being told by another staff person, 7,500. So if we can say up to 7,500, and of course we will try to be mindful of the budget.
Mayor,
and I would also,
it sounds like you're making a motion if you want to go ahead and do that.
Yes, I'd love to make a motion, but Councilmember Shine, did you want to add anything there?
Yes, I wanted to include in the symposium a discussion of what public space is, because I think there's a variety of potential things we can think about, and some ideas that were also sent to us in other public comments to consider.
So then I guess the motion is to explore the idea of public spaces on private property by starting with a $7,500 budgeted symposium. And then once we've gotten that, we will come back to council with the results of the outreach and symposium. How's that? And to have UDAS and long range planning working on it along with our council staff.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. That's what I was waiting for. Madam City Clerk, are you clear on the motion?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great. Is there any...
But she is.
Do you want me to read it into the record?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the item? Okay, City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Yes.
Mayor Horvath.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Wonderful. And now we have one excluded consent item, which is 2I, the resolution establishing a living wage rate for fiscal year 2021-2022 of $13.91 per hour with health benefits contributions and $15.16 per hour without health benefits contributions. And I don't believe we have any public comments on this item, but Councilmember D'Amico pulled it for discussion, so I'll turn it to him.
Thank you, Mayor. So here's what I want to propose to my colleagues. The current item requests that we raise the living wage to $13.91 per hour with health benefits and $15.16 without health benefits. But I think that this, when Lauren and I asked to have this item looked at, the living wage item, I thought that this was going to come back not as just a simple adjustment of the living wage, but a discussion of the living wage item that the city pursues, not a minimum wage item that the city might have a different discussion over. But my concern and my interest in doing that at the time remains that health benefits are available through the Affordable Care Act exchange to people in this category of earning, whether it's 13 or 15. And I would like to recommend to my council colleagues that we no longer have this distinction. This distinction, in effect, you're not allowed to not have health insurance. So we're making a distinction that we don't want people to engage in. And so I would suggest that we just have one living wage rate, which is $15.16 per hour. And that would be the living wage rate. And that we remind people that if you are in this category of wage, that the Affordable Care Act provides what's the word? The Affordable Care Act will pick up the cost of insurance. So you don't have to pay for your insurance at this wage rate. The Affordable Care Act pays the cost of your insurance. So I think that having this distinction no longer obtains, and this is sort of a holdover from the pre-Affordable Care Act invention of the living wage rate by this city and other cities, and the decision to have a different rate for businesses that provide and don't provide healthcare.
Mayor Pro Tem.
But I know, being self-employed, I had an ACA type insurance policy, but I still paid for it. It's only if you are on Medicaid that it's picked up by the government, is my understanding.
Well, thank you. And I don't mean to cut you off, John, but so I have a different understanding, which is why I hope this item would address this question, because it's my understanding that above the living, that not much above this, the subsidy begins to fall off. But at this wage rate, there is 100% subsidy for health insurance. So I'm trying to do two things, which is say, I think we should just pay people $15.16 per hour as a city. I think that should be our living wage rate. But there shouldn't be a wage rate of less, because either way, health insurance at this rate should be free to people who are in this category of 26,000. And I see the mayor, the city attorney raising her hand, and I'm going to stop talking so that the experts can take over. And it may be that we can't finish this tonight, but I was hoping that that was what we would talk about.
Well, I just wanted to give a little more process information because there will be another more substantive living wage item coming back at a later date and a discussion of some minimum wage topics that were added onto that item. That item is taking longer to put together, and we can certainly add that information about health insurance or not health insurance and what the living wage should be, perhaps to the more substantive conversation that's going to come soon. Because this has to be reset every year, this item came first, which is just an update to the living wage rate to be accomplished before, Carlos, correct me, July. But there will be a full discussion of living wage, how it's calculated, what it should be at, and that will be a more substantive discussion in the coming months. I don't know if I have an exact date. So I guess the question is, would you be comfortable doing this tonight the way it's always been done? And then we'll have a more substantive conversation of what it looks like moving forward soon. I think that's the plan.
Kind of like a placeholder until we get the other item.
Councilmember Erickson?
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe, Lauren, don't mute yourself just yet. My understanding was that when the Trump tax item went through in 2017, they made the penalty, they took away the penalty for the ACA. So as a result, that's why it's also being challenged in court, in the Supreme Court. But therefore, people aren't taxed if they don't have health insurance anymore because there's no longer a penalty. They made it $0. So therefore, if you have health insurance or if you don't, the ACA, yes, you can still qualify for those various tiers, but there's no tax to not have health insurance anymore as a result of that Trump tax plan.
I think you're right. I mean, I think that that they took away the requirement to have insurance, but obviously, I think the impetus here is to try to get people to have insurance by difference in the cost. But I think it's a different. That's like also like this for the bigger subject, for the bigger conversation. I think this is just staff trying to do what they're supposed to do by a certain date, and then we are not having the bigger conversation. We're just not ready to have it yet.
And I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember D'Amico is a desire for this routine process to become a choice that we're making a choice that we want everyone to have this one wage, and that we're encouraging people to access healthcare through the ACA that is available. I hear from staff that the analysis of that will be provided at a later date. So I want to make sure that the analysis does include that we've spoken about a lot of things and given direction on things. So I just want to be really clear. This routine process, I'm hearing a request for an analysis on just having one amount as our living wage, regardless of, that has nothing contingent upon healthcare coverage. And then I think we've also given direction on a minimum wage with regard to development agreements. And then I think there was also direction given about minimum wage and living wage in another context. So I just want to make sure all of that is going to come back to us at a later date if we take action on what's before us tonight.
There's about 4 or 5 departments working on that item, but I'll speak for everybody and say we can add this additional analysis about healthcare versus not healthcare to that larger item that's going to come back.
And when that item comes back, should we take action on this specific item, which is before us tonight, about establishing just one living wage rate? Can that go into effect right away, or is this ordinance in effect for a whole year? How will that be impacted? Because what I hear is some desire to make a decision tonight that's different than what's before us.
Well, this is just done by resolution, so I think it could be amended later in the year if the council changes its overall policy about living wage and what it looks like and what it's made up of. But I don't know that staff has the information tonight to discuss changes to the components of what's proposed in here, but we can have it soon.
Okay. So, Councilmember Erickson.
Oh, John, you go. I was going to try to make a motion.
Well, so I kind of had a question for Councilmember Erickson that I sort of know the answer to, but I want to be clear it's not a trick question. I mean, I think you were not pointing out that the ACA doesn't require healthcare because you're suggesting people take a higher wage and not buy healthcare, right? You were not saying that. That was, but I think that so that's the first thing, and the reason I bring this up is because I just think we should be paying 15, 16 per hour. That's where I would like this to end tonight. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if the city attorney, recommends against that, but in my mind, that's where I think our city should land. The second thing is that it's my understanding that this living wage rate is for services that we buy from other vendors. So we're basically raising the wage. This is difficult to get these three words out. We're raising the rate at which we are buying services on ourselves, right? So we're sort of foreshadowing how we think about minimum wage generally as an organization that buys services because we're raising the cost of those services. So that's another reason why I think this is a good next step, because as a city, I think we may want to have that discussion about minimum wage generally. And as you said, Mayor, what developers might have to pay in the future, what businesses might have to pay in the future, if we can establish that this is one of the reasons why we want to do this. Again, I'm willing to hear, and I did hear the city attorney say that they're working on this, but I think, I think we have a very specific thing that we say, which is that without health benefits, you get this amount, but that just doesn't, that's not a thing anymore. Health subsidized through the Affordable Care Act, through the the Affordable Care Act, through Obamacare. At this wage rate, you can get health care that's fully subsidized. So in some respect, I would suggest that we just tell ourselves that this is the new living wage.
So Lauren Langer, is it possible for us to just eliminate the $13 and 91 cent per hour rate and just have one uniform $15.16 per hour rate across the board for the city?
My concern, and I'm just hearing this issue for the first time tonight, but my concern is that there's a provision in the ordinance reflecting health benefits. And so I think it might require a code change to the living wage ordinance in order to eliminate that. And Carlos, you're on. You've got probably more background on the living wage ordinance than I do, but that's what I'm seeing here in the code, is that it might be a change that has to be done by ordinance.
Yeah, actually we do this every year, and it's basically the same template every year. And I think we're required to do this because in 2011, we put July 1 as the new effective date of the new living wage. So as far as, I don't know if we can remove that. I think that's for the city attorney to decide if we can remove that language. So,
is it possible for us for you to bring it back at our next city council meeting with that language change to implement, to have on consent, but with just one wage? So that includes the code language.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we have to, I think that we have to amend the municipal code because it provides for health benefits at a certain rate as part of the living wage. So I think it would require a code amendment, which is first reading, second reading, and then the 45 or the 30-day waiting period.
Councilmember D'Amico.
Isn't it possible we could just set both at the same rate? I mean, logic tells me that there's certainly a reason why people might think they need to be a different rate, but 2011 did not have what 2021 has. So establishing a living wage rate of $15.16 per hour with health benefits and $15.16 per hour without health benefits. And then that's the living wage rate. And for people whose businesses do not provide health benefits, we would hope that their businesses at least notify them of the ability of healthcare through the Affordable Care Act exchange.
Is everyone, Lauren Langer, are you comfortable with that?
I think at minimum, I'd like to look at it and come back with something at the next meeting. I can't, I'm not familiar enough with the calculation, and it says here that it has to be $1.25 for health benefits in the code. So if we could look at it and bring it back, I'd rather do that.
Thank you. And I want to say I did talk at length with John about this, and I don't mean to put John Leonard on the spot, but I thought he was, I actually expected a memo today about this to let everyone know, and that didn't happen, and I didn't get a chance to follow up because whatever, I didn't. Anyway, I apologize to my colleagues because I never like a big surprise, and I thought that was kind of happening. So but I think regardless, clearly more thinking needs to be done about it, and I just wanted to point out that this, I think, is something we clearly we're talking about it, so we want to talk about it, and I'd like to talk about it some more the next meeting too.
Okay, so so I think staff's request of us tonight is to pass what we have before us, and then I think we would also add direction to bring back the analysis and language change that reflects the intentions that were expressed here tonight. Is there agreement on that from the council? Did I characterize that correctly?
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
And I'll second that.
Wonderful. Is there further discussion? Everybody clear on the motion? Okay, Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shine.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister.
Yes.
Mayor Horvath.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Wonderful. There's no additional public comment tonight. Are there any additional council member comments? Anything from staff? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.